The world had always looked up at the stars with wonder, but never expected what happened next. The sky itself seemed to tremble as massive ships appeared out of nowhere above Earth's cities. At first, the world thought it was some kind of celestial phenomenon, or perhaps a massive satellite, but the truth was far more disturbing. The ships didn't make a sound and hovered silently above every major city in the world, from New York to Tokyo to London. It was as if the very air around them had been frozen, and no one dared to make a move. At first, humanity tried to dismiss the ships as a strange weather pattern or a trick of the light, but soon the truth became undeniable. They were not natural phenomena. They were ships of unimaginable size with sleek metallic surfaces that reflected the sunlight in a way that made them appear like objects of pure energy. Governments scrambled into action, sending their best military units to surround the ships, while fighter jets and warplanes buzzed around them trying to make sense of this strange phenomenon. But no matter how many times they circled the ships or fired warning shots into the air, nothing happened. The ships remained still, their immense size blocking out the sky above cities below. The world's communication systems went haywire as scientists and governments tried to make contact with the ships, but nothing came back to them. There were no signals, no sounds, no responses. For a brief moment, the entire planet seemed to hold its collective breath. And then the first broadcast came. It wasn't from Earth. It wasn't from any known language or signal. The image was grainy, but the message was clear. It showed an alien face with eyes glowing softly like distant stars, staring directly at the camera. There was no voice, but the message was somehow felt inside every person's mind, as if it was being whispered directly into their consciousness. "We are here." No further words came after that, only a brief moment of silence before the broadcast cut off, and the ships above remained. People stared at their screens, unsure of what to make of the message. Some believed it was a hoax, while others feared it was a precursor to something terrible. Nations gathered in emergency meetings to discuss their options and whether this was an act of war or something else entirely. But there was no answer. The ships remained silent and unmoving in the sky as the world prepared for whatever would come next. The alien presence above Earth had only just begun to stir the storm that would change everything. And in that quiet stillness, humanity had no idea what they were about to face. Dear Evelyn Ross was chosen to lead the team, a seasoned diplomat with years of experience in dealing with the unknown. Her team was small but well-trained experts in language communication and human psychology. They were tasked with the impossible, to make contact with the extraterrestrials who had arrived without explanation or warning. For days, the ships hovered above Earth's cities, unmoving and silent. The world had been in a state of constant tension as nations braced for the worst. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a small group of scientists, military officers, and diplomats were selected to approach the largest ship. They were the ones who would make history. Evelyn stood at the head of the group as they boarded a transport ship to get closer to the massive craft that loomed like a dark shadow over the land. There was a sense of unease in the air as the team traveled toward the unknown. The closer they got, the more they could see just how colossal the ship was. Its surface shimmered with an almost liquid-like texture, as if it were alive and pulsing with energy. As the transport docked and the hatch opened, Evelyn's heart raced. She wasn't afraid, not exactly. But something about the alien presence made her feel as though she was standing on the edge of a precipice. One wrong move could lead to an unimaginable outcome. The doors to the ship slowly opened, and the team stepped into a vast chamber that stretched beyond sight. The air inside was thick with an energy they couldn't understand. It felt heavy yet weightless at the same time. The walls of the chamber were smooth and seemed to shift and change color, as if they were constantly adapting to their surroundings. In the center of the room stood the beings. They were tall and thin, their bodies glowing faintly with an ethereal light that made them appear almost otherworldly. Their faces were smooth and featureless save for their glowing eyes, which seemed to pierce directly into Evelyn's mind. There was no sound, but as soon as they were close enough, the message came. It was not spoken. It wasn't written. Instead, it was a feeling, a deep sensation that filled their minds and hearts. Peace, understanding, reassurance. The aliens were not here to harm humanity. In fact, they were here to protect. Evelyn stood still, trying to comprehend the message as it washed over her. She could feel their thoughts, almost like whispers in her mind. The aliens had seen the human race from afar and had chosen Earth as a planet worth saving. They didn't speak in words, but their meaning was clear. They were here to defend the planet from something much darker that was approaching. The world had no idea what was coming, but now they had allies. Powerful beings who had come not to conquer, but to ensure humanity's survival. Evelyn's voice trembled as she spoke to the team. They've come to protect us. The silence was broken, but the weight of what had just been revealed settled heavily on everyone's shoulders. Earth's fate had changed in that moment, and no one knew what the future would bring. The alien beings did not speak directly. Instead, their presence filled the room with an overwhelming sense of calm, as if they were inviting the humans to listen and understand. Evelyn Ross could feel it deep in her bones, the weight of their intentions, the truth behind their peaceful message. They were not here to dominate or control Earth. They were protectors, guardians of worlds lost and found. As Evelyn stepped forward, she felt the energy shift around her. It was as though the very atmosphere had changed when the beings moved toward her. Their eyes glowed softly, their gaze penetrating her mind like a quiet whisper that carried the weight of ancient knowledge. The first thoughts to surface were images of faraway planets and star systems, worlds that had been destroyed by forces far greater than anything humanity had ever faced. The Guardians had seen this destruction countless times, but they had always stepped in too late. Now they had come to Earth before it was too late. They weren't here to save Earth from humanity's mistakes. No, the Earth had its own destiny to fulfill, but they were here to protect it from the dark forces that would try to crush it. For the first time, Evelyn understood why these beings had chosen Earth. It wasn't just the potential of the planet or its resources that had drawn them in. It was humanity itself. The Guardians believed in the resilience of people and their ability to adapt and overcome even the greatest challenges. The message was clear. If humanity could rise to meet the darkness ahead, they would be stronger for it. But if humanity failed, the consequences would be far worse than anyone could imagine. The Guardian showed Evelyn and her team glimpses of the coming storm. A vast fleet of ships headed straight for Earth. The invaders were relentless and without mercy. They would not stop until they had what they wanted. And what they wanted was nothing less than Earth's resources. The Guardians had encountered these invaders before, and each time they had failed to stop them. The invaders were brutal mercenaries who cared nothing for the lives of others, only for the spoils of war. They had swept through countless planets, burning and pillaging as they went. Now they were coming for Earth. The Guardians had the power to stop them, but they knew they couldn't do it alone. The time had come for humanity to stand side by side with them. It was not just the technology that would save Earth. It was the unity, the willpower, the unshakable belief that humans could fight back. Evelyn understood now. She had always known that humans had something unique about them, but she had never fully grasped how strong they could be until now. As the Guardians prepared to share their knowledge with humanity, Evelyn knew there was no turning back. The fight for Earth's survival had begun, and humanity had an unexpected ally, one that would help them face a darkness unlike anything they had ever known. The Guardians were ready to fight for Earth, but would humanity be ready to fight for itself? The peaceful days Earth had once known were slipping away as a shadow loomed closer. The ships had been silent for weeks, and the world had come to terms with the unexpected presence of the Guardians above their cities. But all that was about to change. It began as a signal detected by the Earth's last remaining defense satellites. At first, the scientists thought it was a glitch, a system malfunction from the chaos the alien ships had caused. But the signal was real. It wasn't from Earth. It was from deep space, and it was growing stronger. Evelyn stood in the command room of the Earth's central defense base as the signal appeared on every monitor. She could feel the shift in the air, the change in the atmosphere that told her something was wrong. The Guardians had told them that something was coming, but they hadn't explained how soon it would be. Now it was here. The first ship arrived just beyond the edge of the solar system, and it wasn't alone. A massive fleet followed it. They appeared like shadows in the distance, but as they drew closer their size became undeniable. A fleet of warships like nothing Earth had ever seen. It wasn't just the size of the ships that caused fear to rise in Evelyn's chest. It was the way they moved. They were swift and coordinated, as if they knew exactly where to go and when to strike. Each ship seemed to pulse with an energy that felt unnatural to the humans watching from below. The Guardians spoke of these invaders, but they did not call them by name. They were simply known as the Harbingers, a merciless race bent on conquering everything in their path. For centuries, they had traveled from planet to planet, pillaging resources and wiping out anyone who stood in their way. Evelyn looked at the screen and saw the first signs of destruction. The invaders' ships fired without warning. Laser blasts cut through the air and struck the first satellite. In an instant, it was gone. Nothing remained but debris floating in space. The Earth's defense systems scrambled to react, but it was too late. The Harbingers were here. The invaders sent wave after wave of ships toward Earth's atmosphere. The sky above the cities darkened as the ships descended with terrifying speed. Evelyn could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her chest. This was the moment they had feared. The Guardians had not prepared them for this. There was no escaping the inevitable. As the first ships entered Earth's atmosphere, the ground below shook. The sound of destruction was deafening. Cities once bustling with life now lay in ruins as the invaders began their relentless attack. Evelyn had never seen such destruction. It was as if Earth itself was being torn apart by an unstoppable force. The world had no choice but to fight back. But how could they? The Guardians had said they would help, but how much time did they really have? The invaders were here, and they were not leaving without a fight. The invaders had struck with overwhelming force, and the world seemed to crumble beneath the weight of their attack. For days, the planet was in chaos as cities burned and entire nations fell. Humanity was not prepared for the onslaught of such destructive power. But the Guardians did not sit idle. They had been waiting for this moment, and their time had come. Evelyn stood in the heart of the world's united military command center. The leaders of every nation had finally set aside their differences in the face of the alien threat. The Guardians were with them now, and together they had to find a way to fight back. It was during a moment of stillness when the first breakthrough came. The Guardians had shown humanity their abilities in small ways before, but now they revealed the true extent of their power. One of the Guardians stepped forward, a figure glowing with soft blue light. Without speaking a word, the Guardian raised its hand, and the air around them seemed to pulse. Suddenly the ground shook as energy surged through the earth. In an instant, the invaders' ships above began to falter, their systems overloaded by an unseen force. The Guardians were manipulating the very fabric of space itself. The energy from the Guardians was like a shield that wrapped around Earth. It created a force field strong enough to deflect the invaders' laser blasts and missiles. The world watched in awe as the Guardians' power blocked attack after attack. Humanity had never seen anything like it before. It was the first victory the planet had experienced since the invasion began, and it sparked something inside the hearts of every person on Earth. The fear that had gripped them began to shift. It turned into something else. A fire. A drive to survive. Evelyn looked out over the command center and saw the faces of soldiers, scientists, and civilians alike. They were all united by one purpose: to protect their home. The Guardians had shown them what was possible, and now humanity would fight alongside them. The military forces quickly adapted to the new technology the Guardians had shared with them. Weapons were upgraded and strategies evolved as humans learned to work in harmony with the Guardians' powers. Each person on Earth became a vital part of the fight. No longer were they divided by borders or governments. The invasion had forced them to come together as one. Across the globe, people of every nation stood side by side with their alien allies. Together, they built new defense systems stronger than anything Earth had ever known. In the cities where the invaders had landed, humanity began to push back. The first successful counterattack came when a group of human soldiers working with the Guardians ambushed a fleet of invader drones. The battle was swift and brutal. But for the first time since the invasion began, the invaders tasted defeat. It wasn't just the advanced technology or the Guardians' powers that made the difference. It was humanity's spirit, a spirit that refused to bow to fear and defeat. And with each victory, the alliance between humanity and the Guardians grew stronger. Evelyn knew they weren't just fighting for survival now. They were fighting for something far greater. They were fighting for their future. The war had escalated to its final stages. Earth had become the battleground where the fate of humanity would be decided. The invaders were desperate. Lord Saroth had seen the strength of humanity, and it had shaken him. His forces were dwindling, and the Guardians had revealed the full extent of their power. Now the humans and the Guardians stood together at the brink of the ultimate battle. For the first time since the invasion began, the invaders knew they could lose. The last remnants of their fleet gathered over the skies of Earth. A massive warship the size of a city hovered in orbit, preparing to descend onto the surface and crush the last resistance. It was clear now that this would be the final confrontation. A battle that would determine whether Earth would remain free or fall into the hands of the merciless invaders. Evelyn stood at the command center, her heart pounding in her chest. The world had been battered and bruised, but it had not broken. Together with the Guardians, humanity had fought back with a fierce determination that surprised even the invaders. But this would be their greatest challenge. The enemy was relentless, and their weapons unlike anything humanity had ever faced. The final stand would take place on the ground and in the sky. The armies of Earth were ready to face the invaders one last time. Across the planet, soldiers of every nation prepared to fight for their homes, their families, and their future. The Guardians had provided humanity with the tools to fight, but it was the human spirit that would tip the scales. Evelyn could feel the tension in the air as the battle approached its peak. The Guardians stood beside humanity, now more than just protectors, but allies in the truest sense of the word. Together, they shared one goal: to push the invaders off Earth and ensure the survival of all who lived here. The first wave of battle began when the invaders' warships descended upon the Earth's surface. Their weapons fired with unrelenting force. But the humans were ready. Fighter jets launched from the ground with incredible speed, engaging the invader ships in the air above. On the ground, soldiers fought back with weapons powered by the Guardians' technology. The battlefield became a place of chaos and destruction. But there was hope. Humanity refused to yield. As the warships rained fire from the skies, the Guardians used their powers to create shields over key cities, protecting civilians who were caught in the crossfire. On the ground, armies moved with precision. Each soldier knew what was at stake. Every inch of Earth was now a battleground. And each battle fought brought them one step closer to victory. But the invaders were not easily defeated. Lord Saroth watched from his flagship as the battle raged on below. He had underestimated humanity's will to survive. But he was not ready to accept defeat. The final confrontation would take place between him and the Guardians. In the heart of the storm, Lord Saroth descended to Earth. He would face the Guardians himself. It was a battle that would decide everything. And the fate of Earth hung in the balance. The war had escalated to its final stages. Earth had become the battleground where the fate of humanity would be decided. The invaders were desperate. Lord Saroth had seen the strength of humanity, and it had shaken him. His forces were dwindling, and the Guardians had revealed the full extent of their power. Now the humans and the Guardians stood together at the brink of the ultimate battle. For the first time since the invasion began, the invaders knew they could lose. The last remnants of their fleet gathered over the skies of Earth. A massive warship the size of a city hovered in orbit, preparing to descend onto the surface and crush the last resistance. It was clear now that this would be the final confrontation. A battle that would determine whether Earth would remain free or fall into the hands of the merciless invaders. Evelyn stood at the command center, her heart pounding in her chest. The world had been battered and bruised, but it had not broken. Together with the Guardians, humanity had fought back with a fierce determination that surprised even the invaders. But this would be their greatest challenge. The enemy was relentless, and their weapons unlike anything humanity had ever faced. The final stand would take place on the ground and in the sky. The armies of Earth were ready to face the invaders one last time. Across the planet, soldiers of every nation prepared to fight for their homes, their families, and their future. The Guardians had provided humanity with the tools to fight, but it was the human spirit that would tip the scales. Evelyn could feel the tension in the air as the battle approached its peak. The Guardians stood beside humanity, now more than just protectors, but allies in the truest sense of the word. Together, they shared one goal: to push the invaders off Earth and ensure the survival of all who lived here. The first wave of battle began when the invaders' warships descended upon the Earth's surface. Their weapons fired with unrelenting force. But the humans were ready. Fighter jets launched from the ground with incredible speed, engaging the invader ships in the air above. On the ground, soldiers fought back with weapons powered by the Guardians' technology. The battlefield became a place of chaos and destruction. But there was hope. Humanity refused to yield. As the warships rained fire from the skies, the Guardians used their powers to create shields over key cities, protecting civilians who were caught in the crossfire. On the ground, armies moved with precision. Each soldier knew what was at stake. Every inch of Earth was now a battleground. And each battle fought brought them one step closer to victory. But the invaders were not easily defeated. Lord Seroth watched from his flagship as the battle raged on below. He had underestimated humanity's will to survive. But he was not ready to accept defeat. The final confrontation would take place between him and the Guardians. In the heart of the storm, Lord Seroth descended to Earth. He would face the Guardians himself. It was a battle that would decide everything. And the fate of Earth hung in the balance. The skies above Earth were a battlefield of fire and destruction. The last of the invader fleet hovered just above the planet, its massive form casting a dark shadow over the land. Lord Seroth stood on his warship, his eyes fixed on the chaos below. His forces had already begun to falter, but he refused to accept defeat. He was determined to crush humanity and its newfound allies. But the Guardians were not about to let that happen. They had revealed the full extent of their power in the past days, but now they would have to unleash their might to the fullest. The Guardians had always been protectors, but this time they would be warriors. The final battle would take place on Earth's surface and in the heart of the skies. Evelyn stood at the command center, surrounded by the leaders of the world. She could feel the weight of history in this moment. Everything that had led to this point had led to this final clash. The Guardians were preparing for their own confrontation with Lord Seroth. The energy in the room was palpable. The fate of Earth was now in the hands of the few who had risen to defend it. The battle began with a roar as the final wave of invader ships descended upon Earth's cities. The world's military forces joined the Guardians in the skies as humanity's final stand began. Fighter jets streaked through the sky, engaging enemy ships, while ground forces fought fiercely to protect the cities. The Guardians worked in unison with humanity's forces, blocking attacks and striking back with devastating energy blasts. But the invaders fought with all their might. Lord Seroth watched as his fleet launched one final attack toward the ground. It was a calculated strike meant to cripple humanity's last line of defense. But the humans would not back down. On the battlefield, a group of soldiers led by General Marcus Daniels and his team pushed forward against overwhelming odds. They fought with everything they had to protect their home. But it was in the heart of the conflict where the true battle would unfold. Lord Seroth descended from his ship, landing on Earth's surface in the midst of the chaos. He was a towering figure, his eyes filled with hatred as he faced the Guardians. The ultimate confrontation had arrived. Evelyn could see it all unfold on the screens before her. The battle between the Guardians and Lord Xerath was beyond anything she could have imagined. It was a clash of unimaginable power, but it was also a battle of wills. And the Guardians were not just fighting to protect the Earth. They were fighting for the future of the galaxy. Evelyn's heart raced as she watched the final showdown unfold. The Earth shook beneath the clash of forces as the battle raged. Lord Xerath's fury was met with the Guardians' unwavering resolve. And just when it seemed the invader might overcome them, the Guardians' combined power surged forward. In one final strike, they defeated Lord Xerath. The invader's fleet fell into disarray. As the warship lost power and crashed into the ocean, the remaining invaders retreated. They had been defeated. Humanity and the Guardians had won. The Earth was saved. The skies cleared, and for the first time in weeks there was silence. The dust settled over the planet as the world breathed a collective sigh of relief. Evelyn stood tall. Humanity had survived. The Guardians had shown them that even in the face of impossible odds, the spirit of unity and resilience could prevail. The world was forever changed, and Earth's place among the stars had been secured.